Good morning, Facebook. Colton here at Susann's. And, well, we had a wet weekend. If you're not in Corpus, you probably saw it on the news, because I guess it made national news, that we got a little swampy. So, yeah, we could have swam in our front yard. But we're not going to talk about water today. We're going to talk about part 2 of garnets. There's a lot of garnets out there, and last week we were only able to cover a small portion of them. So we're just talking about the ones used in jewelry. There's over 20 varieties out there. We're talking about basically just 5 of them. So last week we covered the red garnets. This week we're going to cover the really fun ones. We're covering the green garnets. I know everybody freaks out about it because they're like, oh, there's no such thing as a green garnet. They'll come in looking at it. That's an emerald. No, it's a garnet. And we've had people argue with us and all sorts of stuff. It's kind of crazy. Nobody really knows a lot about the green garnets, so they're kind of fun to talk about. They're really fun to show because obviously people haven't seen them. So seeing people's facial expressions whenever they see a garnet for the first time that's green, it's a lot of fun. So we're going to get right into it. Like I said, last week we talked about the red garnets, and that garnets are a group. So they're not actually a species of stone, I guess you could say. They're a group of stones, so they all have the same crystal structure and stuff like that, but they have other things in them that can change, that changes the color, or what they do. There's color change garnets out there too that we're going to talk about a little bit later. And so they're just different varieties of one stone. So Dad's going to join us here in just a little bit. He's grabbing some loose stones here for us to look at. But you know, with the garnets, you know, everybody gets to see them every now and then, and the ones that we're talking about today are just a lot more fun. They're a lot more vibrant, I think, than some of the reds, especially if you get some really nice ones. So the first one we're going to talk about is probably the one you're going to see the most often, especially used in high-end jewelry, and that is going to be Tsavorite garnet. And yes, it starts with a T, so whenever you go to pronounce it, it's Tsavorite, not Tsavorite, or whatever you want to call it. You don't pronounce the T, it's silent.
It's like that's like that knife.
Yeah. Or cannot.
Yeah.
Or I cano.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's silent. So he's getting those out here right now, but I know our camera quality is a little bit unusual whenever it comes to the actual stones here in the store. So I'm going to show you some pictures of these out of our book here real quick, and we'll talk about them a little bit more. But since they are a garnet variety, they still are a cubic structure stone. Not that that matters a whole lot. Don't really care as long as it looks pretty on your hand. But yeah, they can rival emeralds. They're really beautiful stones. Typically they're going to have a slight yellow to them, but for the most part they're going to be a nice bright kind of grass green color, especially if you get really nice ones, and they'll be really vibrant. They'll be really bright. If they're cut really well, they'll be really bright and beautiful. And because they're garnets, they hold up a little bit better too. So they're not as fragile as what most people know emeralds to be, though emeralds are hard, and we've talked about that before. You know, garnets are going to be a lot cleaner stone, so you don't have to worry so much about the fractures and the inclusions and all that stuff in there that causes them to be a little bit more brittle and chip and break easy. So just to that's kind of an introduction, I guess you could say, into the Tsavorite, but I'm going to let him talk a little bit more about the stone itself and what makes Tsavorites unique other than just their color.
Well, a little bit before that, I met the guy that actually found Tsavorite in East Africa. That was kind of cool. The first gemological symposium they had was in like 81. And he
1881.
No, not 1881. And he was actually one of the featured speakers there. And this guy is a Scottish geologist, but his forte was basically East Africa. And he'd basically figured out from geology stuff that he was doing, they were actually looking for beryllium, thinking that beryllium was going to be used to line the nuclear reactors or whatever, and he kind of somewhat stumbled across Groschler garnet, which is what Savorite is, and he kind of traced this strata to near Kilimanjaro, and I think it was in like 1967 or something like that, he discovered.
I like that he stumbled upon it.
Well,
You know, I mean, you think
actually,
about it, you would expect it to have been an Irish guy to stumble upon a green stone,
Yeah.
but like drunkenly stumble upon it.
Well, actually, part of the story was he got chased into a gully by a water buffalo.
Now the story
he-
gets better.
And he was trying to get it. Well, that's kind of weird. And he was looking for it to begin with, but this water buffalo had different ideas of what he should be doing there.
How did you find the stone? Well, you see, I was in Africa and a water buffalo chased me,
Yeah,
and
I'd been drinking some scotch and the water buffalo. No, it wasn't quite that way, but anyways,
got under my kilt.
yeah, he about that same time, tanzanite was discovered in East Africa, and he went to the United States to basically show blue zoisite, which is tanzanite, to was basically the guy for Tiffany's, and ended up talking to the two senior gemologists at GIA, and they basically confirmed that he had blue zoisite, which was later named tanzanite. But
We'll talk about that much later.
yeah, but this Savorite is, like Colton was talking about, is probably a lot more durable, and because of the way Savorite forms, it's actually a little brighter stone. Has a
Yeah.
higher refractive index than what emerald does, and
Which basically means that it looks shinier when it's cut on your hand.
yeah, brighter. I
Yeah.
mean, the color of that green can be real crisp and bright.
Yeah.
Um,
Reflects light better.
And the biggest problem with Savorite is it doesn't occur in very large crystals. So emeralds, fine emeralds can happen in much larger sizes than what Savorite does. But the green of the Savorite, somebody sees that, they go, wow, that's just a really bright emerald. But
They're just little bitty guys.
and this is actually some rough.
Yeah. So this stuff hasn't been cut yet. You can kind of see, not very big crystals. So whenever you get any of these of any size, they start to get really expensive, especially if they're really clean and they've got really good color.
And we've sold some larger. I think probably the largest Savorite we've sold is probably around 8 carats. And that, I know that sounds big, but emeralds, it's not unheard of for them to reach over 30 carats.
Yeah, it's one of those deals. As far as in reference to diamonds, yeah, that would be pretty big. But in the colored stone world, I mean, you can get depending on the type of stone, you can get huge crystals. I mean, there are quartz crystals that you could carve into bathtubs. I mean, they're huge. So whenever you're looking at the grand scope of things in the colored stone industry, these are actually really, really, really small crystals. And having an 8-carat stone is just ginormous. I mean, this is starting to get into the quality that could end up in museums because those crystals just don't form very big. And so something like that 8-carat, I mean, that's definitely something to brag about whenever you got that on your hand or around your neck or wherever it may be worn. We're not going to judge.
Yeah. But anyways, they can kind of vary from yellowish green to deep green. I mean, what you would think the finest emerald looks like.
Yeah. They very often get confused with emeralds. Especially if we just have one sitting in the case and somebody looks at it, oh man, that's a beautiful emerald. Yeah, it's not. We wish it was.
Well, the biggest problem when most people come in and they're asking for garnets, say it's January and they're looking for their birthstone or whatever, and you show them a green garnet, they kind of look at you like, well, he's colorblind, he can't tell red from green.
Or we'll ask him, well, what color do you want? And they're like,
Red?
Yeah, that almost like, well, what do you mean? What color? That doesn't make any sense. It's just red, right? And then whenever we say, well, no, it can be any color, then it's just like mass confusion. So that's why we're doing this video. Help out with that.
And I kind of like Haley's little comment here.
I know.
I didn't know your dad was alive in 1881. See, Colton just thinks I'm older than dirt.
Well, he's always able to tell these stories about when and how these things were discovered because he was there. So
No, I just met the guy. The guy's older than I am. Well, he was older than I am because
he was actually a Scottish wild or a water buffalo herder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know that part. We just know about the stones themselves. But the guys that stumble upon them, whether they were drinking while they were being chased by water buffalo or whatever, we don't know that. We don't know those details.
You've embellished on that story a lot.
That could be a really, really funny one, though.
The color from that happens in the green garnets is caused by chrome and vanadium, very similar to what causes the color in emerald.
Mm-hmm.
If it gets a little more yellowish or brownish color, normally it's a little higher iron content. So
Here's another pretty one.
yeah. And those pictures actually don't do the stones justice.
No, they don't. They really don't. I mean, it's just like a lot. Jewelry is one of the hardest things to take photographs of because you can't capture that brilliance and that intensity and the color and the intensity and the light that's coming back to your eye like your eyes can. And so, seeing these stones in person is much, much more impressive than any picture you'll ever see.
I don't know, probably,
And,
oh,
of course, we got to go
shucks. I'll
dropping
get it.
stuff here.
let me go get it.
It's a good thing we have carpet over here. So, yeah, this is why we can't have nice things. Yeah. So, yeah, we have stones on the floor here. Luckily, with stones like this, though, they're shiny and they're easy to find because you get a flashlight if you don't see them already, and you just shine it on there and find them real fast. But yeah, the greens in these just incredible. The hardest part with these probably is going to be finding, like, if you're wanting to match them for earrings or you're wanting like an entire suite of jewelry. Sometimes these Saverites, because of their rarity and their size, sometimes that is very difficult to get matched pieces of jewelry, and so that makes it a little bit more difficult as far as making this kind of I guess you could say a commercially available stone, just because you're not going to find this in chain stores and stuff like that because it's so rare. Yeah, it's not going to focus on it real well.
And it's all washed out.
Yeah, because this stone that he's got, that he's trying to show right now, like I said, the camera's not going to do it justice at all. It's just something you'd have to see in person because the thing is just crazy intense color. And it's brighter than, it is brighter than emeralds, but garnet reacts differently with the light. And so, yeah, that one, on the camera,
it's a little better.
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
This is also a little deeper green.
Yeah. But the stones are just, they're incredible. It never ceases to amaze people whenever they see a Savorite garnet, especially these high quality ones like this. It never ceases to amaze customers and people that see them for the first time because they don't expect to see a stone that high quality and that color and that intensity and it not be synthetic or emerald.
It's not emerald, yeah. The other thing that was, and this has probably been 5 or 6 years ago, we were at the JCK show, and there's a guy there that always has something unusual that probably should be in a museum or something like that.
Yeah.
And he had 5 matched round Savorite garnets that were around 6 carats each.
Something that you should charge ticket price just to see.
Well, and the other thing is I asked him how much, and he basically didn't even want to tell me how much they were. So I never did find out much, but it's just incredible to see 5 matched like that. Just to see one of them or 2 of them is amazing, and he had 5 of them that matched. So.
And yes, Gabe, we do have work to do, and that's what we're doing. We're educating people.
Uh, the other garnet, I don't know if we're jumping or whatever, but the other green garnet that's around is an androdite variety called demantoid. And demantoid was found quite a bit earlier, and it was found in Russia, and I think maybe in like the 1860s, maybe close to 1870 in the Ural Mountains of Russia. And it's also green, also fairly rare. I'm going to say probably
It's not as deep a green though.
can be,
Can be, but traditionally it's a little bit more of a yellow.
but it's
Yellowish
the same thing. It's the if it has more iron in it, it gets a little more yellowish. It
Yeah.
has the chrome and the vanadium in it, then it gets to be more of the deep grass green color that you'd like to see, or what you think emerald would be.
I think the fun thing with these demantoids though is they have one of the coolest inclusions. Sorry about that. For some reason, we're getting a phone call from one of our viewers at the same time. So, yeah, Gabe, I'm going to call you out on that. We're doing this on my phone, so yeah, when you call, it pauses things, and that just not good. So, yeah, call us
But
later.
Good to hear from you.
Yeah. Yes, I hung up on you.
So now he's gonna call
Oh, so
my
now
phone.
he's going to call him. Yep, there you go. Hi, Gabe. Okay, so back to the demantoids. Demantoid garnet has, like I said, it's got one of the coolest inclusions out there. It's what we call the horsetail inclusions. And they are just fun to look at because that is a horsetail inclusion in a demantoid garnet.
That one looks like a horse in a windstorm.
It does. It does. Or like, you know, when animals really drumming, going crazy for the Muppets.
Has his butt in the wind, and it's blowing it's blowing towards his head.
Yeah.
But these, a lot of times, inclusions in gemstones are detrimental to the value of that stone, but in
Silence. This one is one that's kind of fun because it is unique just to demantoid garnets. You don't see this exact type of inclusion in any other stone. You might see similar inclusions in like termalated and rutilated quartz. You get some of that kind of horsetail effect. But it's not the same. In those, they kind of go in all different directions, whereas these, they kind of, with the horsetail inclusions, they usually somewhat localize and then spread out from that one little area. So they have a very unique, distinct look to them, and they're always fun to identify just because, you know, every time that we get a demantoid in here that we want to kind of check out, I always hope that there's that horsetail inclusion in there because I think it actually adds to the stone. Whereas in most cases, like he was saying before Gabe called, is that you know, most of the time those inclusions are going to reduce the value of the stone, whereas this one actually doesn't. In some cases, it can actually enhance it because collectors like to see that, and it's just kind of a unique signature to that stone, and it's just fun to look at. Unfortunately, it's not something that, you know, we can show you on camera in a live stone right now, just because these inclusions again are all within the stone, so they're smaller, and these stones again, being the green in this green garnet variety, they still don't occur in very large sizes, and so this is another one of those that is a little bit more rare, and you'll see it every now and then. I don't think we actually even have a demantoid in the store right now.
But they actually occur in more places than what the Savarite does.
Yeah.
The Savarite got popular because
Mainly,
Campbell Bridges was basically a consultant with Tiffany's, and Tiffany kind of brought that around maybe even about the same time that Tanzanite got really hot, and nobody's really done that with demantoid.
Yeah.
Part of the reason maybe where it was first found in Russia maybe gets to be a little difficult, but they found it in Mozambique and Madagascar and Ethiopia, and I guess I'm out of the picture here. You're seeing my best side, I guess. So, anyways, I don't think I've held a demand toy before, but I don't think we've ever had one in the store. The Savorite is probably a little more popular because at least some people have heard of it.
Well,
Most people don't. Have never even heard of a demand toy, but
Yeah.
know what it was if we brought
Yeah,
it up.
I mean, Savorite is kind of, I guess you could say, oddball enough that most, I would say at least 90% of the population's never heard of a Savorite Garnet, or at least seen one anyway. And so you throw out demand toy, and they're really confused because,
And you say it's got a horsetail in it.
like, what are you drinking?
Yeah, really.
You have a water buffalo chasing
Yeah.
you? But no, the Savorites, we do have some here in the store you can come check out. We do have some rough, which is actually, that's even more unusual to have rough in a store. Generally, you get colored stones in any variety, really. They're already going to be cut and faceted and ready to go. And we got a whole lovely little box of them, and I'm going to try not to spill them. So,
Yeah, you can't hardly tell, but
yeah. But we got a whole little box of these little rough stones. Again, like
we probably ought to cut them, but
we could. I mean,
Somewhat.
they're not gonna end up being very big. I mean, this is probably the biggest piece of rough that's in there, and we're still not real big. But they've got pretty intense color, and they got a little bit of a yellow to them. But they're a really, really good substitute for emerald if you're looking for something, especially for a ring. And they're going to be, depending on their quality, they're going to be a little bit more expensive than your normal red garnets, of course, just because they're much more rare. But in most cases, considering size, they're going to be a little bit less than emerald, but they're going to hold up a little bit better than emerald as well.
I'm going to say they'll be quite a bit less than emerald
Yeah.
until you get into the really large size.
Yeah, and you start getting into like that 8-carat size, then you're going to start getting into some stuff that's going to be really, really expensive, but on the same note, it's going to be really impressive. It kind of falls in the collector stone variety. There's enough to be used in the jewelry industry, but it's still rare enough and little known that collectors do like Savorite garnets. And so if you do collect stones, this is a good one to add to your collection, and we do have them available here at Susann's.
Well, part of that deal with, this is kind of a late find, like late 60s, whenever that stone was found. A lot of stones were found hundreds of years ago, and here Savorite is.
This one's definitely relatively new. So he's going to step out for just a minute, but like with this one and with tanzanite being found, basically in like the 60s. I mean, it hasn't had a whole lot of time to get marketed either. Diamonds, they've been around for hundreds of years, so every generation has grown up knowing about them. Whereas these, I mean, there's generations now that were alive before this stone was really discovered and taken to commercial market. And so it's still getting its name out there, I guess you could say, and it takes a long time. It's not like just coming up with a new line of clothing and pushing it, and in a couple months it's gone worldwide. It doesn't work that way in the jewelry industry so much, especially whenever you're talking about a single variety of stone that could be used by any designer. So it's because of its rarity and its size, it doesn't lend itself to be a real commercially viable stone, so you're not going to see it, like I said earlier, you're not going to see it in the chain stores and things like that where the mass amount of jewelry is purchased and manufactured for. And so you're just going to see it in smaller boutiques and high-end independent stores and stuff like that. And a lot of times you'll maybe even see it in collections and museums, and that's about where it ends. Just because, like I said, it doesn't have that commercial viability, because though there are sources for this, and it is mined. You know, some is found in Africa. There's some in, I believe, the Sri Lankan area and Brazil. And, you know, they are great stones. They've got great hardness, great durability, and all that. But I don't think they're ever going to quite make it to that commercial level. So, but they are fun to work with. They're very beautiful stones. We invite you guys to come into Susann's and check them out. We've got several here that are faceted, and we do have obviously some rough ones that you can check out too. So if you want to add to your collection and you want a rough specimen to add to it, we've got some great pieces here. And as always, we can always get ones that are a little bit larger or different shapes and sizes. We've got those connections out there that we can kind of feel them out for you. So definitely come on in. If you have more questions, come in, check us out here at Susann's. We're at the corner of Alameda and Everhart in the Town and Country Shopping Center. We thank you guys for joining us this morning here with Family Jewels, and check us out next week every Tuesday morning at 10:45 here at Susann's. Thank you. Bye.